Welcome back to Truth Hurts, where we expose corrupt politicians, lying corporate media. I'm Jake Duesenberg, your host. What are we talking about today, MAGA Jesse?
That's right. We got a lot of good stuff to be getting into. We will be talking about two House races that are going to recounts. We'll be talking about some potential election fraud that is going on within those two districts, District 14B and 54A. We'll also be talking about Tim Walz and his bleak future. Obviously, the election didn't go his way. So he's back in Minnesota. Unfortunate for everybody, for all parties involved. He doesn't want to be here. We don't want him here. We'll be talking about the MNGOP's future and whether or not that includes being MAGA or not. And then we'll be talking about some of the nominations that have come out about Trump's cabinet and where we think things are heading for the country.
Reading your comments live in studio is the 47th President of the United States of America, Donald J. Trump. Rad, see you there. Mary Kay, great lady. Everyone likes Mary Kay. Glenn Cotton. I'd say there's a lot of good cottons. Glenn's the best of the cottons. Tucker 91. Everybody loves. Hey, take it off me. I'm doing my impression. Everybody loves Tucker 91. Razzle dazzle. Good man. Frosty girl. Hello to you, Frosty girl. Hate Minnesota. Good person. True Seeker 0450 and Billy 22, not to be confused with Billy 2222. Thank you, Donald Trump. That was amazing. So he'll be reading your comments. I think all Rumble rants will be read in Donald Trump's voice today. So if you want to be part of our show and interrupt us anytime, Donald Trump will read your Rumble rant. We should have had like echelons here. The better the Rumble rant, the greater the I don't know. $100 Rumble Rants gets MAGA Jesse to do his Donald Trump impression finally. Can we agree on that?
It's not that good, but I mean, I guess I'd do it.
Okay. All right. Running the dials as always is Mr. Deep State himself, Dawson. How you doing there, Dawson?
I'm doing good. I got beat up for the first time yesterday while boxing, and I'm reeling from it a little bit, but it was fun. It was good.
Well, you get yourself beat up politically on the show all the time, so you're used to it, right?
Well, getting beat up physically was actually much nicer.
Well, there you go. Thank you to our wonderful sponsors, Warren Wessel of Keller Williams Realty. If you're looking to buy a home or sell a home, give my good friend Warren a call at 612-419-7453. Great real estate agent, sings in my church choir, and also believes the same things like you and I believe in. And speaking of people that believe the same things that you and I believe in, the good guys at John Galt Mortgage Company, they named a company basically after somebody who is very much aligned with us, John Galt. Who is John Galt? Who is John Galt Mortgage Company? You can go to johngaltmortgage.com, learn more about these guys. Also, follow them on social media. You will not be mad that you follow them on social media. And we're going to be talking about St. Cloud today because 14B is one of these districts that are critical, and there's some sketchiness in the ballots that came out there. You know, the election in St. Cloud might have been sketchy, but you know what's not sketchy is Alpine Cabinetry in St. Cloud. For all your cabinetry needs, go to Alpine Cabinetry in St. Cloud, Minnesota. First story, Jesse, let's talk about this. As it stands right now, Minnesota House is tied 67-67. This hasn't happened since 1979. So I've had a lot of people ask me, so what does this mean? Who's the speaker? All that. No one knows. There is no roadmap to what happens with 67-67. What I will say, and when we do our second segment on Walz's bleak future and his speech, I actually ended up going back and watching his stupid speech. What a joke that guy is. But he wants to unify. Right? Walz is definitely crippled in Minnesota. Okay? But I will say this. The rhinos... Someone's got to get him in line, and I know you guys at Action for Liberty are going to do that, Jesse. So 67-67 House is pretty critical. Leave it to the MNGOP to watch a red wave all across the country and not pull it off here in Minnesota. And we'll talk about MNGOP's future and the failures of David Hand. And then let's talk about Trump's cabinet picks because I got a lot to say about that, Jesse. But let's start out right here with two House races. What do we got? What's going on?
Yeah, let's go ahead and pull up that article on line A1, Dawson, because like you said, Minnesota is currently facing a 67-67 divide within the state house, and Republicans overperformed expectations due to Trump energizing patriots to turn out and vote Republican up and down the ticket.
Hey, that can't be said enough. It's not like it was some great brilliance by him and GOP strategists. Right. It was Donald Trump elevating the game.
Mm-hmm. Right. It was 100% Trump. It wasn't anything to do with the Trump offices that Emmer installed, the 13 Trump offices. That didn't flip any votes. David Hand didn't flip any votes. Walter Hudson didn't flip any votes. But Trump certainly did. And the GOP's...
what does that have to do with anything?
Because that's the party apparatus. The GOP's House wing, the HRCC, used divisive tactics and support unendorsed incumbent rhinos to the tune of tens of thousands of dollars in deep red districts and continued to burn the bridge between the grassroots and the establishment. Local Republicans won despite of, not because of, the HRCC. So in that spirit, the MNGOP and the HRCC are failing to fight for two GOP House candidates that would give them complete instead of shared control over the State House of Representatives. This would make it either 68-66 or even 69-65. Odd things have taken place on the Minnesota Secretary of State election results webpage on election night, such as the addition or subtraction of votes or even results flipping between competitors. The Secretary of State's office has not given explanation on this yet. And one of the issues that is apparent in Minnesota elections is that the county elections have completely abjugated their responsibility to report the results and given it entirely to the Secretary of State, giving it to one central group. And the Secretary of State's office has proven not to be a trustworthy group with that information, with all of the problems that we're going to be discussing here. Because concerns of election integrity are a top concern. Election integrity advocate and 2022 Republican Secretary of State candidate Eric Van Mechelen reported that an absentee ballot board member in Benton County was not allowed to do the appropriate amount of signature verification work that they are required to. Despite that, the county certified the results anyway. Eric Van Mechelen also reported a change in results for a school board election, ISD 728, which also took place in Sherburne County, and raised concerns with the newly added ballots to the results, which changed the results of it, giving one person victory and taking one person's victory away. So both Benton County and Sherburne County have portions that are represented within the legislature within House District 14B. So it shows that Sherburne County has multiple issues coming up here.
Let's interrupt for a nice rumble rant from Glenn Cotton. Go ahead, Trump. Glenn Cotton, keep up the good leadership, Jake, informing and organizing the people. This is Glenn Cotton. Great Glenn. Everyone says Glenn Cotton's a great person. I love Glenn Cotton. There you go. Glenn Cotton, thank you so much. I'll get it a little bit better by the end of the show. Keep going there, Jesse.
All right. So with those election concerns in mind, we can look at 14B. Dawson, go ahead and go back to the article. On election night, it appeared that Sue Eck had flipped the House District 14B with her bid to take out DWI Dan Wolgamott. As seen below, the Secretary of State...
Can you blow that up a little bit, Dawson?
Yeah, go ahead and zoom that in, that first result.
Yeah, and we were on live, so what we did is, which is great because we were live live streaming the election night, we're actually showing this, and so we just had to go back to our own clips.
Right, exactly. Because, if we weren't live streaming it, we wouldn't have been able to have access to these screenshots of information. Right. So this very first one here shows that Sue Eck won. It says 100% of the votes are in. 20 of 20 precincts have reported.
You see that on the top left? It's 100% in, right?
Yep. So on that top left corner, you'll see 100% in, 20 of 20 precincts, and you'll see that she is in the lead by 4 votes. It was later reported that Dan Wolgamott actually won the race by 28 votes. But before then, the Secretary of State's webpage updated and gave Wolgamott the lead with only 95% reporting. So you can see that. And if you zoom into that corner, you'll see all of a sudden it's a later time, but it's only 95% reporting at that point. And
we can report that Dan Wolgamott was in such shame and pity that he had already grabbed a bottle of vodka at the local liquor store. Yep. Looks like we have another rumble rant, this one from Brad Ganzer. Go ahead and take it away, Trump. Brad Ganzer, post-election idea, a never again bill to never have Jake do an impression again.
I'd vote for Trump. I'd do it.
Why does Brad have to be such a hater? Honest to God, he could learn some humility from that failed candidate character that keeps coming up on the screen. Mm-hmm. All right, continue on there, Jesse.
So then, after the results had changed and showing only 95% in, go back to the results. Then it shows a 28 vote lead that was reported by the Secretary of State's office. And then following these results, Sherburne County stated that they had absentee ballots that were not reported to the Secretary of State's website. Sherburne County Administrator Bruce Messel said the omitted absentee ballots stemmed from a single ballot scanner that did not fully transfer its data to the state's election reporting system. After these votes were added, Wolgamott now leads Suwek by 191 votes. So you can see the results there. And so apparently they're saying that a ballot scanner did not transfer the data for these absentee ballots. Of course, that's odd to have happened after the fact. It shows another problem, like I said, with localities not controlling their elections and reporting all of this to the state. It shows that there's technological problems that are associated with these types of things. And it's a major problem to say that we had some omitted absentee ballots after the fact, even though the Secretary of State's website is saying they have 100% reporting. I don't know how that mistake could be made. Obviously, you don't have all of the precincts reporting if you have votes still to be added. So the Secretary of State's office was giving plenty of misinformation on election results during the day of. And another massive election integrity issue within Sherburne County was in the newly created city of Baldwin. Due to Baldwin's recent creation, the residents had to elect a mayor and 4 city councilmen this election cycle. Eric Van Mechelen also reported that the election results were changed in the city council race, with the addition of unexplained votes causing the election outcome to change. So there was someone that was elected. All of a sudden, those results changed. They're not elected anymore. There's all these unexplained votes. And interestingly, you cannot even find the Baldwin results on the Secretary of State's website, on the election results webpage, and only on the Sherburne County website. Some have also alleged that the previous Sherburne County auditor illegally put herself on the canvassing board. Sherburne County will now have to pay the cost of the recount election, and they will have a election canvassing board meeting, which is actually taking place right now today, 1 p.m. at the Sherburne County Government Center. Election integrity advocates have told A4L that they will be in attendance. Rhino Chair David Hand has called on the Secretary of State Steve Simon to investigate this. We have also been told that MNGOP Chair, Deputy Chair Donna Bergstrom will be at the Sherburne County canvassing meeting. She and David Hand must know that their jobs are on the line in December. That's the only reason I could explain for why they would show any kind of movement on this. Then we can look at 54A, which is also another...
Okay, so before we go to 54A, which is even closer, so
Yeah.
what's your gut say on this one? I mean, it is interesting. You know, the law change, or was it a law or rule? What was it in Minnesota where you could drop off ballots all the way to 8 o'clock on election day? Which just seems goofy. If polls are open,
Right.
why do we accept absentee ballots? Just in general, why would we accept absentee ballots on election day? That just doesn't even make sense. And it used to be till 3, then it became 8 o'clock. So it gave them another 5 hours. And so that was one of the blames on delays and maybe discrepancies here, because they didn't have the ballots till 8 o'clock in some cases.
But they're blaming it on a scanner. You know, that's the county's official explanation. They're blaming it on a scanner and saying that the scanner didn't properly give the information to the Secretary of State system. So to me, it's, I mean, I don't know exactly how to explain for, you know, the part of the problem too is there is no explanation that anybody on the outside really can have for unexplained ballots, because you can't exactly figure out how they got there. And especially during recounts, all you're going to do is recount the same ballots. It's not as if you can make any kind of serious change. And then, you know, like the problem mentioned in Benton County, where there was an individual who wasn't able to do the proper signature verification work. There's all kinds of things that should have taken place in these counties, and if it's not taking place, you can't ensure free and fair and proper and honest elections.
We did take a cursory look at this, and by no means have we come to conclusion, but you know, the results in Sherburne County do match what happened in 2022. So it's not like there was a complete switch in a precinct. There's 4 precincts in Sherburne County in this district race, 14B. And by the way, Wolgamott won all 3 of the 4. They're actually St. Cloud precincts, and then there's one township. I can't remember what the township's called. So we didn't see an anomaly in those numbers. Now we're going to continue digging into it. I think it's worthwhile. I mean, here's the other thing that I wonder, Jesse. are we just noticing this? Does this happen all over and we just notice it because it's one of the key races? Or is it just because this is where the suspicion happens? Is it why does this happen in the close races? I mean, the balance of power hinges on 54A and 14B. Everybody knew that. Like, those were the races. So, yeah, I'm just kind of curious, like, is this a case where, I mean, it just seems too coincidental that it would happen in these races, or we just don't notice the ones that are happening because they're just not important races. For instance, like a deep blue or a deep red district. That I don't know. You know, it'd be interesting to just peruse the website and log, you know what I'm saying? Maybe you just, I don't know, Dawson, we just keep opening different sites on that night and record the computer doing it. I don't know. Like, how else would you find out what it was saying? Because it's always being added in, and then we go back and audit it.
It's. I think that I said it while we were live that night too. Just the fact that it's even close to possible is amazing. So, like, I don't know how any of that works or how they would do it.
Well, it's just interesting that two races that we were watching, not that we were the only ones watching these,
Yeah.
obviously the balance of power, they both had this case.
Because of that, that makes me think that it must happen more often. Because, like, what are the odds that it's the ones we're watching?
But that's the thing is, if they're cheating or if there's some kind of nefarious activity that's going on, those would be the races that they do it in, right? Because that's the worry we all have. You know, I don't have a conclusion here. I'm just saying it's important to look at this stuff. Don't let anyone fault you for even asking these questions. I know most of our audience won't feel bad about that, but you know, people that want to call you an election denier or whatever they want to say, it's very important to see this kind of detail or this kind of information and then question it. Even if the bad part is if we just jump to conclusion without all the information, right? And I think that does happen on the right. You get people that are, maybe they're charlatans at the worst case, and in the best cases, they have confirmation bias, right? They believe that cheating occurred, and so then the only information they process is stuff that further explains that bias that they already had. In our case, we're going to just try to find the facts. It's called The Truth Hurts. Sometimes the truth hurts. The truth is there's no cheating. It literally is the explanation they gave. But it does warrant more investigation. Okay, what happened in 54? Let's talk about that.
And one thing I want to say also on Sherburne County, I got a text that I may have given some incorrect information on one little part, that the county auditor was actually pertaining to the previous election when the county auditor was on the canvassing board, and apparently that is illegal for that to take place, but it's for the previous election, not this current one. But on 54A, it's another district like 14B with a incumbent Democrat representative with a Republican challenger in a swing district. And also like 14B, it was a district where, according to the Secretary of State's website, the Republican had won with 100% of the votes counted. So go ahead and go back to the article, Dawson. I did just add this picture in there, so it might take a second. Yeah, it looks like it's there. So with 100% of the votes counted, you can see there, Aaron Paul was in the lead with 51.02% to 48.8% with Brad Tabke. Like I said, 15 out of 15 precincts, 100% of the results in, according to the Secretary of State's website. And as seen above, he had a narrow lead that vanished as the night went on. The new results were added after the fact, which now shows only a 13-point lead for Brad Tabke. So now Tabke, the Democrat, is the one with the majority of the votes in this case. So more media attention has been focused around 14B, even though 54A is an even closer race. The Scott County Canvassing Board will have their meeting on certifying election results tomorrow, 11/13/24 at 3:30 p.m. at the Scott County Government Center. The recount for this race must be set by a date no later than December 2nd, and the recount is going to be paid for by the state due to how close this is. Tabke is, of course, an unpopular politician who is not well liked in the area, so he's gone radical on every single bill. He's sided with the Democrats on every single bill, every single amendment, every single critical issue. He has been on their side of it. So Brad Tabke is, one of the examples in particular was where he wants to mandate child transgender surgeries for insurance companies to cover it. So he wants to mandate the insurance coverage over it. In this race 54A, we're seeing very similar problems where votes are added after the fact, even though 100% of the votes are supposed to be in, even though all of the precincts are reporting, we're seeing votes added after the fact. This was, of course, Eric Mortensen's district, 54A, and it's just worrying that, especially in the times when we have all these people who have skepticism when it comes to our elections. Instead of fighting to regain our trust, the election officials have given people more reason to question the results. Sloppy work isn't corruption, but sloppy corruption is corruption. So we're going to continue to advocate for free and fair elections. We're going to continue to advocate for patriots to show up to these canvassing meetings, make sure that your voice is heard, make sure that the corruption is called out. When we see these races where the Republican Party should really be stepping up to the plate, and the Republican Party needs to lead on these election integrity fronts, especially when this could give the House to the Republicans. This isn't, just to pick up a seat or two. This is to take control of the state House, and the Republicans need to step up to the plate on this one. Otherwise, it's going to be 67-67.
All right, so M. Bowers 44 says, how does the cheating always favor one side? Which is a valid question. Has it ever gone the other way in Minnesota?
Right.
So I did the math, and once again, this requires a lot more investigation. We'll be on top of it. By the way, canvassing board today in Sherburne County, canvassing board in Scott County tomorrow. When you take, and this is what's interesting, is on our live show, we went into the federal and state results by 54A. So we actually broke down. So we got to see all the numbers. Mm-hmm. I haven't told you this yet. So when you look at when it said 100% reporting on our show live to what it says now, Trump netted 2,582 more votes. Kamala Harris netted 3,289 votes. So in other words, how come it always favors one side? Well, all these, because I assume it's absentee ballots, right? That it's more Democrats voting by absentee, okay? Of that, so remember, Trump gained 2,582 votes. Aaron Paul actually got more votes now than he did when we were reporting live, so more than Trump, 2,678. However, Tabke underperformed Kamala, which would fall in line with kind of how the votes were going. However, Tabke still netted 3,052. It was enough to make up the difference. So I don't know. I mean, certainly leads you to believe there's a ton of Democrat ballots coming in, right? Mm-hmm. It does always seem to favor that one side. I don't know, man. What's your gut say? My gut says that there literally is I don't know. I guess I don't have a gut on this one.
Right. To me, these election officials, they know how much skepticism is out there.
Yeah.
It's incumbent upon them to prove to us that these things are fair, and they do nothing but the opposite. They give people more and more reason to question. And I don't put the Democrats past cheating. Of course, I think the Democrats cheat. That's why they changed the election laws in 2020, so that they could cheat easier. So it's like I said, unless you're the Secretary of State or unless you're the county auditor, you really probably can't get to the bottom of a lot of these election integrity problems unless you are the person with the information who can actually sort through what is going on. Okay,
so let's come back to this on Thursday as we get some more information. Canvassing board, is that fair?
Yep.
You report on this, and your article's up on actionforliberty.com, or is it not?
Not yet. It will be, though.
Will be. All right. You're going to sneak preview on that. All right, let's go to Tim Walz. This was the other story I really wanted to talk about. So Tim Walz got a little bit of humble pie. We brought in Royce White on the show on Thursday, first post-election show. Jesse couldn't be here for that show. Doesn't that suck? Donald Trump wins. This is like literally what he's been waiting for 4 years. And he had something else going on Thursday. MAGA Jesse. That was so sad. So this is the first time we get to talk to you about Trump's great win. And then we'll get into how's he doing so far, right?
Yep.
Which is a mixed bag, in my opinion. Some things really like. By the way, that Department of Education bit yesterday, that was... all right, so Tim Walz got a big spoonful of humble pie, and I love it because I think this is a terrible guy. We've talked a lot about him. I mean, maybe I could forgive him, but he needs to do something. He needs to show up and actually make the people that he ruined the people during COVID that he ruined their lives, he needs to make them whole. Until he does that, I just don't believe that this guy deserves forgiveness because he really did a lot of damage to Minnesota. So it's really interesting to see him talk like he's bipartisan, that he wants to reach out to the other side, and we see no action. But let's listen to the man in his own words. Dawson, let's pull up the B1. This is Tim Walz. By the way, I'm going to show small clips. Don't go watch this. This speech is awful. It's like talking to his supporters. It's not worth watching. I just wanted to highlight some of the things this guy says because we'll use it down the road. All right, so this is the first one. This is where, the mood he sets about how he feels about the loss. Go ahead and hit this.
Everybody, so it's wonderful. But look, folks, I just want to acknowledge the moment. It's hard. It's hard to lose. It's hard to understand while so many of our fellow citizens, people that we have fought so long and hard for, wound up choosing the other path. It's hard to reckon with what that path looks like over the next 4 years. So if you're feeling deflated, discouraged today, I get it. Take some time, take care of yourselves, take care of your loved ones, take care of your community. There's a million ways to make a positive difference, and get back in this fight when you're ready. And
now, of course, this is obviously talking to his supporters. Okay, so he's trying to, beef up the energy of the deep Democrat supporters. I don't know. Would you even do a speech like this? I mean, do you have to?
You kind of have to.
You feel obligated to do it?
A little bit. I mean, there's something like your supporters are looking at you like, what next? They're looking at him, even though he's not really a leader of the Democrat Party. It's not like the Democrats really all, respect him all that much. I think the Democrat base generally kind of likes him, but it's not like he's the leader. Same thing with Kamala Harris. She's not the leader. It's still Obama. So I think he has to, though. You have to have you have to give some kind of speech and say what happened. And by the way,
Obama's taken a big hit.
Yeah. His popularity has gone down.
Yeah, that was not good for him.
Right. It's a bad look. Him and Michelle going out there and chastising people. It's like, that's not going to win you votes. And then big surprise, it didn't work. And they just blame misogyny. They blame sexism. It's the typical stuff because they don't want to admit the reasons for why they lost. Tim Walz is, so confused. He's so confused why people would vote for Trump. I can tell you why, because you guys are awful. Because we want to, we want to see the establishment go down. We obviously see that our country is heading in the wrong direction thanks to the career politicians that are in D.C. So why wouldn't we want a outsider who's going to try to straighten it out? So Tim Walz can continue to be confused, but it's clear to me why America didn't choose him.
Well, it's very clear to Tim Walz what they want, and according to Tim Walz, it's freedom. So let's play this second clip, B2 here, Dawson. Yeah. This election, when he traveled the country, was about freedom. Go ahead.
It's a chance to get ahead. And I think most of all, and you saw it in a very deep way, people want freedom to live their lives the way they want to live them. It's not the way maybe their neighbors wouldn't want to live them the same way, but the freedom is supposed to be everybody's birthright, not because of how much money you had or where your family came from, no matter who you love or how you prayed or what you think about the issues of the day are. And everywhere I've gone, I've had the opportunity to tell people how things work here in Minnesota.
Oh, yeah. Okay, you know what's really interesting about this, and this is what I said during COVID, is he doesn't have a right to shut down our economy. He doesn't have a right to tell us to stay in our home. He doesn't have a right to tell us to inject a experimental drug in our body. He doesn't have a right to tell us to put a mask on in public. You know why he doesn't have that right? Because the rights didn't come from him. They're not from government. They predate government. They definitely predate Tim Walz. They are our birthrights, as he said, and recognizes right there. They are our birthrights. They come from God. They come from our Creator. Boy, I think there's like a document somewhere that says that. And he acknowledges their birthright rights. Mm-hmm. However, it seems to me that's not his track record. Right. Not at all. He says, well, let's see how we do it in Minnesota. It's like, are you serious? You really are saying that?
I know. He's trying to sound like a libertarian. It's a joke. It's like, yeah, he's Mr. John Locke. I mean, give me a break. That guy wouldn't know natural rights if it smacked him in the face, because he's done nothing but abuse them. He's done nothing but grow government. If he's all about freedom, what's the one way to increase freedom? Shrink government.
Yep.
So he's obviously not in line with his own ideals. So if he wants to talk about freedom, the only time that he's talking about freedom is when it comes to transgender children and abortion. And those are the only two times he cares about freedom. Besides that, he's all about tyranny, all about control.
KJ 1967, I don't remember that name. Maybe that's the first time. I'm sorry if I'm forgetting.
No, I think they've been around.
Well, they, we don't know the gender. I'm going to read in here. Walz, Harris, and Joe Biden need to be locked up, throw away the key traitors. It's interesting because that's a lot of what they were saying about us, and of course they want to tone down their rhetoric. In this case, yeah, I think Tim Walz belongs in jail. When you infringe on the rights of other individuals, by the way, that's a federal crime. When you infringe on the liberties of other people. In fact, Donald Trump's already, what is his lawyer? I can't think of the guy's name. Has already alluded to the fact that I think it was Letitia James needs to drop the cases, otherwise they're going to pursue federal civil liberty law. We have a rumble rant from Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. Go ahead, Trump. Tim Walz's women supporters are shaving their heads, never using deodorant again, and never sleeping with men again. Thank God they will stop breeding. That is a fair point, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. A fair point. The issue is they weren't breeding really to start.
Right. I've been seeing, there's lots of people reacting to the crazy TikToks and whatnot of, people losing their minds, especially women. Women are losing their minds right now. And honestly, I was thinking about it. Like, could you imagine being a feminist? Like, you're a hardcore feminist. That's your number one thing. That's how that's your persona. That's how you identify yourself. You think Kamala Harris is going to win because the media has been telling you that Kamala Harris is going to win. And you think that there's no way that, that anything else happens. And then next thing you know, election night comes, and all these feminists all of a sudden have to deal with the fact that Donald Trump, their arch nemesis, the person they hate more than anybody else, is coming back. It's a dose of reality that some people have to live with, and they like you said, yeah. I mean, people are freaking out, and to the point that they're shaving their head, they're not using deodorant, and that's the state of the liberal woman nowadays. They've gone completely overboard. And they obsess over abortion, even though 90% of them will never have an abortion. So it's just interesting to see the hive mind of the liberal women, because it's completely sent them off the deep end.
Yeah, I mean, like a little fraction of it. Like it's not.
No, I think almost all women are voting on abortion.
Well,
almost
it
all
seems
liberal,
to be a big
young
portion.
Women,
yeah,
young liberal women are voting on abortion.
But I'm saying, like, to take these measures, not wearing deodorant, all that kind of stuff. I think it's a small faction.
There's some, yeah.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
it's a growing faction.
You can't deny the fact that there'd be people on the other side if Trump would have lost that would be providing material to the left as well.
Well, I mean, it would have been stolen in that case, because obviously we just won the landslide. Well, we just won the landslide.
Well, that's true. I mean, this is all hypothetical. So
right,
right,
and especially because the media had been gaslighting everybody into thinking that it was going to be up in the air. They were telling everybody that's to gauge everybody, to get everybody ready for that, and also they do that to try to turn down the Trump support. So the media, if the media was fair and even did things 50-50. It would have been a 50-state landslide instead.
Yeah, but I'm going to push back on you. They did say it was going to be close. I don't think they were to say it was going to be.
So did every single poll that we looked at.
Well, not every single poll, okay? All right, and this is actually where we look good, okay? So what we did is we took the RCP average, the Real Clear Politics average, which undershowed the support for Donald Trump, but not by a lot. In some states, a lot, but not by a lot. Some polls got it real accurate. Some polls didn't. We talked about that Des Moines Register poll. That one is the biggest joke ever, and it's hilarious. Crystal was all about that one.
Yeah, right.
Like, anyone that was talking about that Des Moines Register poll, it's like, really, guys? Seriously?
What happens to them now? Do they lose money or something?
You don't. There is this thing about pollsters. That's a good question. Pollsters want credibility, okay, for the future. However, there's a portion of the left that really, really want to do anything they could to deliver that election for Kamala. Unfortunately, it was too big of a landslide for Trump. I shouldn't say big landslide. You got to understand, he won the popular vote by over 4 million, but it's not like that's equates to the battleground states. It was still a pretty close election. Now, Arizona, whenever they get done counting in 2 months, shows Trump had 5-6 points. Georgia went by a lot. North Carolina went by a lot. Nevada actually went by a lot.
Yeah, and they're
Michigan
saying,
and Wisconsin were still like a point.
Right. In Arizona, it's a little sketchy. They're saying that 4.5% of people that voted for Trump didn't vote for Carrie Lake. That's a large amount of people.
It is a large amount.
4.5%. And it's not like there was a Libertarian or a Constitution Party. It was Carrie Lake, the Democrat, and a Green Party.
Yeah.
And I'm supposed to think that 4.5% of Trump voters said, I'm going to vote for Trump and Ruben Gallego? Doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I'm not an expert on that.
That one, I mean, it's Arizona, so we shouldn't expect anything fair to come out of there.
Well, why does it take them so long to count votes? It's ridiculous.
Right. Yeah, they want to say it's their process, but obviously the rest of the states aren't having the same issue. And you brought up breaking points. They had an interesting town hall. You know, they bring voters in for a little panel discussion. This was months ago. It was when Biden was still in the race. It was during the primary. They had all these Democrats on. At the time, they asked them, do you think Kamala Harris could beat Donald Trump? None of them thought he could win. You know, they said not in a million years. And, you know, so the media, you know, that's the thing. If you would have asked Democrats a year and a half ago, you know, should we put up Kamala against Trump? They would have said, hell no, no way. That's the worst idea ever. They all knew she would have lost. But it was all because of the media propaganda and making people believe that, no, she's actually a rising star. We all loved Kamala from the beginning. Even though they knew that wasn't the case, and it shows how quickly they can change the perception of people. Because there was a lot of people on the left who thought Kamala Harris sucks, and then all of a sudden she's the nominee. They think the world of her.
Well, that's actually a great point. So they definitely were gaslighting us there. The problem is they also were reporting on polls, and it was actually quite close. Okay, now the reason we predicted Trump was going to win on the show a week beforehand. Okay, and by the way, we didn't predict the Republicans would take back the Minnesota House. So it's not like we're just like, yay, go Team Red. We're predicting what we see. And the reason we predicted it was whatever the RCP average was, not some modeling, just take the averages of the major polls. Whatever that is, it's going to undercount Trump support to the point where the day before, the only swing state I didn't think was going to go Trump, and it was more of a gut, was Michigan. My electoral map had, 297, and he ended up with 312 because he took Michigan. And did you? I think
306.
You had 306, right?
Because I didn't think he was going to take Nevada, but he took Nevada too. So he took all of them. Which
Nevada,
is
I was very confident in, by the way, because I was looking at early returns. Michigan was the one that scared me. Actually, everyone was like, "Well, the Muslim faction," you know, and I was like, "I don't know if that's enough." But and their GOP is so pathetic. But yeah, I think actually Michigan was even a bigger margin than Wisconsin, if I remember right. So, and I was pretty confident on Wisconsin. All right, let's get back to Tim Walz. So then Tim Walz talks about how he respects democracy and doesn't want to demonize, or we shouldn't demonize, the other side. Go ahead and play the B3 there, Dawson.
As long as I'm governor of Minnesota, we'll be a state that respects democracy, a place where we're proud of our civic debate and where we don't demonize people who disagree with us.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, it's like Minnesota, the land of freedoms and democracy. Like...
Yeah,
it just
the
bugs
Nazi
me that
rally,
people...
You know, he called it a Nazi rally, but he says don't demonize. Really?
He literally called us...
You demonized us right before the election. No wonder we didn't vote for you.
He literally called, like, MAGA people... I mean, he didn't literally. He said, you know what's going on. It wasn't a coincidence that they're doing a rally in Madison Square Garden where the Nazis did one in 1939, which is just the dumbest thing ever. And the media went with that, too, by the way. That's demonizing to the worst part of society. Like when you call people Nazis and you call them like Hitler, which I'm pretty sure he called Trump Hitler, that's the demonizing that goes as far as it possibly goes.
Right, and it shows how ridiculous it is. If Hitler won an election, do you think that Tim Walz would be conceding and accepting the results? I mean, it's ridiculous. If Hitler won the election, people would be having a complete freak out. It shows how they're unserious with their attacks, and when they throw out those labels, it completely diminishes the value of when you call someone a Nazi, because then nobody thinks it's legitimate anymore. So when they continue to insult regular people like that and target us, it's going to have an effect. And this election, it just shows that you can't talk down to us. You can't just put up a couple random people. The whole country didn't know who Tim Walz was. We knew who he was because we're in Minnesota, but the whole country had no idea who he was.
And we got to introduce him to Tim Walz.
It's
great.
The country still didn't really know Kamala Harris, because they, and also I was thinking about it on Joe Biden's end. He never gave her a real opportunity to shine, did he? Like, he never gave her a task where Kamala Harris actually of course he gave her the border, this and that, but he never gave her a real opportunity to shine. I think there's a lot of nastiness between the two of them. I don't think they actually get along. And I guess Obamas aren't returning Kamala's phone calls anymore. So
Jill Biden wore that red dress on election day. I mean, I don't know how else to read into that. Because it's the first lady. You have a staff, right? You guys know that? First ladies have staff. They talk about wardrobe. You know that?
Oh, yeah.
Like, this isn't some conspiracy. There's thought that goes into big appearances, and one of the big appearances is Election Day in Delaware to go cast her vote. You don't think there's some thought put into what she's going to wear? If you don't believe that, I got a bridge to tell you. And she wore a bright red. I mean, it wasn't like red with black or something. It was bright red. It was just red. Solid red dress. Got it? All right. Let's go to the B4. This is Walz, and this is the last clip I got on him. Talks about wanting to work with the other side. Listen to this guy. One Minnesota. We're just one Minnesota. Listen to Tim Walz in his own words.
Good intentions are good ideas. And now that this election is behind us, I'm going to try even harder to keep an open mind, open heart, and really listen to folks who don't support me or my policies, to work with everyone in the legislature to seek compromise and common ground. Because that's how we come back together after such a long time spent fighting each other. That's how we heal the rips in the fabric of our civic society, and that's how we move forward as one Minnesota.
Okay, so let's just say he's got good intentions, which, I mean, boy, that's quite a stretch. I'm going to extend an offer for Tim Walz to come on this podcast. Okay? Let's do that. Let's bury the hatchet, Tim Walz. Come on this show. Okay? You want to go into the other side? You want to extend an arm? You want to extend an olive branch? You want to break bread with the other side? Come on this show and let's have a discussion. And I'm just not going to believe that you really think this way. And this whole one Minnesota stuff is bullshit. But I'm not going to believe this unless you forget, or you go out there and you, what should I say? Like, I was going to say forgive the debt, but, well, I guess that would be too. But, like, make the people whole who you destroyed during COVID. You know, the Lisa Hansons, the Lisa Monets, the Jane Mosses, you know, the Larvitas, right? Who am I forgetting? I'm forgetting somebody. Who am I forgetting?
I don't know, but yeah, I mean,
Jane, Larvita, yeah. Two Lisas.
Yeah,
there you
there
go.
were obviously, yeah, I mean, obviously he should.
Plenty of others, obviously,
right.
to mention. Yeah, but those are the big ones, right?
Yeah, he obviously, if he wants to be for freedom, if he wants to lead with unity, if he wants to come together, he's got to come to us. It's not the other way around. Obviously, the whole country just rejected him. So he's the one who needs to have some self-reflection, and especially with Minnesota, which, the Republicans have such a deficit when it comes to the money that, the Democrats have such a big monetary advantage. So the fact that the Republicans were able to pull off a 67-67 split in the state house just goes to show that point even more.
Yeah, and by the way, thank you, Trump. You guys should be thanking Trump for that one. Okay, I've obviously got an opinion on Tim Walz. It's fun to watch people that don't know him like we know him opine on Tim Walz. And so I thought, let's go to Dave Smith, the great and powerful, brilliant Dave Smith on Joe Rogan to hear exactly how he viewed this whole campaign, having Tim Walz as your running mate. Go ahead and play this.
It was one of the craziest things of this whole campaign. One of the most amazing things is that they actually tried to just run on nothing.
One of my favorites was that Tim Walz tried to claim that his wife got pregnant through in vitro fertilization, and she said that's not true. So he lied about that.
What a weird guy he was.
His wife had to come out and say he was lying.
Yeah. Well, so something, okay.
That guy lied about everything. He lied about being a head coach. He was an assistant coach. He lied about his military rank. Lied about whether or not he served in a war. Lied about whether or not he was in Tiananmen Square.
Yeah.
He fucking lies about everything.
Well, see,
Don't you have that second clip there, Dustin?
he picked a VP that could help him.
Right.
He could do things that Trump can't do.
Right.
You know, like he could go on a show and really make the case pretty well in a hostile environment.
He's talking about J.D.
He's got
Vance
a very
here.
high verbal IQ, clearly. You know, he's a very intelligent guy. She picked a VP who can't do anything to help her. Who's like the weirdest human being you've ever seen. Like what was the strategy here, guys? And they really just banked on being not Trump. That they go, you know, all of the things that she ran on 4 years ago, she walked away from every position and didn't have an answer for any of them.
That's the problem. I mean, we could do a whole diagnosis on what went wrong with Kamala, but I feel like the last 3-4 months we've pretty much talked about it ahead of time.
I would have never guessed that Walz was going to be as weak of a VP contender as he was. I thought he would have performed a little bit better. You know, I would have thought, especially that debate performance, he looked awful. I expected better out of him, and especially with the interviews, he can get. You know, he can do an interview, especially if it's a friendly interview. He can go on to mainstream news and answer those questions. He's perfectly capable of that. So I was surprised to see how badly he did, and especially the impression that he left off on the American people. He's a liar. That's what people see of him. Because, you know, like Joe and Dave were saying there was just so many lies that were just, you know, small, white, you know, things that had, you know, were meaningless. They didn't have to lie about the IVF thing. You know, it was like, why did he lie about that? It was mainly just to try to say, you know, we're for IVF and the Republicans are against it, even though that's not true.
He's a knucklehead. That's it. He's just a knucklehead. Sometimes he misspeaks. You know, we've known this guy to be a liar. Listen, there's so many examples just in what we showed in those clips. Like, we could really go deep and talk about his COVID policies, but I think you guys get at this point. His speech the other night in Egan, he's talking about democracy and being for freedom. He wasn't for any of that kind of stuff. He also said, I didn't clip that, he's like, and we will stand here in Minnesota and let a woman choose what she's going to do with her own body. It's like, you force vaccine mandates on female state employees, and you say this stuff. So, yeah, he lies all the time. Yeah. Now, here's the thing.
And, you know, on Dave Smith, one last thing, too, where, you know, I started watching one of his latest videos because he is addressing the Libertarian Party. I mean, the Libertarian Party had their worst performance in years. They got 5th place. I mean, this is the 3rd biggest party in America. They got 5th place. They lost to a guy who dropped out, RFK, and they lost to Jill Stein, who was on less ballots than them. And I had mentioned before, I went on the previous Libertarian nominees page, Joe Jorgensen, to see what people were saying. And a ton of them were, there were a ton of Libertarians who voted in 2020 who regretted their vote and were saying, I'm voting Trump this time. Because once they had the Democrats actually in front of them, once the Democrats had power, the Libertarians realized that, you know, there's no use to fighting Trump when Trump is mainly on our side on a lot of these important issues. So a lot of the Libertarians completely abandoned the party. They've come join the Republican Party because of Donald Trump.
I won't go that far. They just voted Trump.
You know, some of them have. You know, the Libertarian Party is definitely shrinking, and it's completely because they decided to put up a leftist who is supporting child transgender surgeries and whatnot. So honestly, I couldn't have been more thankful that that's what the Libertarian Party did, because it completely deteriorated them into nothing. Because now, like I said, the 3rd biggest party getting 5th place, losing to RFK Jr., not a good sign for them to come. And, you know, yeah, that's just my point. If they're the 3rd biggest party and they get 5th place, it shows the massive impact that Trump had, because, you know, their percentage went down like 6 or 7 tenths of a point. That means almost 1% of people that, you know, went Libertarian decided to either go for Trump or, you know, Kamala. But, you know, obviously the majority of them went for Trump because Trump went and spoke to the Libertarians. He promised a education secretary or some secretary that's going to be a Libertarian. So the Libertarians weighed the pros and cons, and obviously Trump is the most Libertarian president in modern history.
Okay.
Who would be more Libertarian in modern history?
I mean, I don't even think. What does that mean? Like, they're on the
to
scale
JFK.
Of, to JFK, like, I mean,
It's Trump.
Is there even a winner? I don't know if there's a winner on here.
Trump, yeah.
Trump grew the government?
Well,
the
not
government
really.
was larger when he left.
Congress grew the government.
Trump's had a more humble foreign policy, one that I'm more aligned with, for
regulations,
sure.
he
but
definitely shrunk the government.
well, he
on
definitely
foreign
did
policy,
that. Maybe
ending
on
the
that.
wars.
Maybe on that alone,
Yeah.
then you get the award. But I mean, it's like, well, anyhow. Speaking of problems with the National Libertarian Party, there's problems with the Minnesota GOP, and the future is really interesting. Obviously, we're no big fans of the Minnesota GOP. I'm a libertarian. I'm what they call small libertarian. I'm libertarian minded, but I don't work with or caucus with the Libertarian Party because these problems exist there. But it's not like the image GOP is some well-oiled machine. They just have the other option on the ballot. Essentially, that's what it is. It's the other option on the ballot. Most people are. The one thing you can learn from this election, third parties did not perform well at all. It seems like it just keeps shrinking each election cycle, even though most people would love a strong third party. So anyhow, what is the future of the MNGOP here?
Yeah, Dawson, let's go ahead and pull up C1 because Minnesota's RNC committeeman, which is the Republican National Committee, A.K. Kamara, has declared that the MNGOP is the party of MAGA. He says it is a time for reckoning for Never Trumpers, and I question, does that mean David Hann, our chairman? So the MNGOP's leadership ranks have been filled with anti-MAGA Never Trumpers for years, despite the grassroots Republican base being firmly in line with President Trump's vision. Trump's White House victory has cemented the MAGA agenda into the Republican Party's brandings and doing. While the MNGOP Rhino chair, David Hann, has awkwardly and desperately tried to blend in with MAGA. Dawson, go ahead and scroll down, actually, and click on where I said awkwardly in the first paragraph. I just want people to see that this is who we're talking about here. There's David Hann and Donna Bergstrom doing an awkward attempt at the Trump dance. That's them on the RNC floor. It just shows that these people couldn't be relatable even if they wanted to be.
I know.
So that's just, I just want to point that out, that obviously he is awkwardly and desperately trying to blend in with MAGA, but conservatives are good at sniffing out a phony. Hann has only pretended to embrace Donald Trump because he has to in order to retain power. Minnesota's RNC committeeman, A.K. Kamara, was elected by the MNGOP State Central Committee in May this year to the RNC post and beat out incumbent Alex Plekish after Plekish backstabbed Ottertail County delegates. A.K. Kamara posted a video on X yesterday declaring that now is a time for reckoning for Never Trumpers. Dawson, go back to the article. Let's go ahead and pull up that video. I got it linked right there where it says A.K. Kamara posted a video on X. You can just click that. We don't need to watch the whole thing. It's 5 minutes long.
Why does this page not exist?
Did he delete it?
Oh.
Did he delete it? Oh man.
Just click on go to search. Let's go look on his website.
Yeah,
What's
go on A.K. Kamara, yeah.
How would you
K-A-M
it's different
A-R-A.
name. You gotta put a space in there.
Yeah, real A.K. Kamara. He posted it, let's see, it was 2 days ago, maybe?
Oh gosh, with how much somebody posts. 15, 23, 21.
2 days ago, did you say?
Yeah. It was
November 11th was yesterday. Keep going. So you think it was on Sunday?
hold on. That was it.
This one?
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe the link just got screwed up or something. I'll make that correction. But so yeah, go ahead and play that video right there, Dawson.
It is time for reckoning. This message is specifically for Never Trumpers or any person that calls himself a Republican but thinks that Donald Trump actually hurts the Republican Party. You have been proven to be completely and utterly wrong.
Kristen, you said it not just Donald Trump winning the election, but winning the popular vote. First time in 2 decades for a Republican. And how
Okay,
did
go
he
ahead and
do
stop it. So isn't this, and this is probably in your article here, I mean, isn't that David Hann saying this isn't the party of Trump? Like, isn't that his own words?
Right. Yeah. So A.K. Kamara posts this video where he's basically laying that out, that you have to be with Trump if you want to be a Republican, especially after this latest victory from him and going to the White House, that basically the MNGOP is the party of MAGA. So, while he's highlighting that Trump has the broadest appeal as a Republican since Abraham Lincoln, when it comes to minority voters and several other categories. Kamara states, quote, "If you still think you can be a Republican that doesn't support Trump, then you aren't a Republican. Just admit it. You're either an independent or a Democrat," end quote. This common sense may upset some rhinos who hate Trump's guts or fight his agenda in secret. It is not debatable that Trump is the standard bearer of the Republican Party, but big government, weak-kneed, bipartisanship-worshipping, globalist neocons occupy much of the GOP apparatus. So if A.K. Kamara really wants to root the rhinos out of the party, he may have to look at the other MN-GOP leaders around him. But Chair David Hand has been a longtime opponent of President Trump and was even publicly snubbing him as recently as 2022. He did not want Trump to visit in 2022, even though Trump could have energized the base to get out and vote, and that probably could have put Scott Jensen over the line, but they didn't want that. David Hand was also the co-chair for Rhino Carly Fiorina's 2016 primary campaign and then ran for MN GOP chair in 2017. He called Trump rude, obnoxious, abusive, and other awful things, which has been weaponized by the Minnesota Democrats. And even after Trump secured victory in 2016 and began implementing the America First agenda, David Hand told leftist propagandist NPR in 2017 the following, quote, "We are not the party of Trump. We are not the Trumpian party. We are the Republican Party," Hand said. "He is our president. He is carrying the flag in that office," end quote. Hand has continued to say that the MN-GOP is not the party of Trump as recently as 2021. Also in 2021, Hand said he was, quote, "not a Trump guy," to the disgraced, phony Republican Michael Broadcorp. Hand has led the party in a way that has disenfranchised the grassroots and refuses to abide by their will. Hand was even recently called out by the 2024 Minnesota GOP Senate nominee, Royce White. Hand and the MN-GOP were also completely silent on the witch hunts against President Trump pre-primary, and no action was taken on this until I proposed and helped pass a resolution at State Central declaring that the MN-GOP was opposed to the politically motivated indictments against Trump. Hand never once mentioned this resolution publicly and refused to say whether or not he supported it in a private conversation he had with me, which, what does that tell me? It tells me he opposed it. He didn't want it. And if David Hand doesn't want that resolution out there, it means that he somehow thought that we shouldn't condemn the Trump indictments. I can't believe that he would think something like that, especially if he's the chairman of the party. And as previously mentioned, Michael Broadcorp is a perfect example of a phony who uses the Republican label like a con man when he is truly in bed with the Democrats.
Okay, let's stop there. So I obviously agree with Broadcorp. Okay, he represents this disgusting.
Do you like that I say he's in bed with the Democrats?
That's a good one. He represents this it's so obnoxious. And by the way, the Republicans against Trump Twitter account, they just can't seem to shut up after election. Okay. Mm-hmm. Those people to me are just awful, right? They're the neocons. They're the ones that just, maybe they're personally ambitious to get into power or get some kind of job with Democrats in control. They're basically Democrats at this point. The Cheneys are Democrats, right? Mm-hmm. And then Hand obviously works against MAGA people. You know, he's going to use Trump. He's going to say things. He's going to do things in support of Trump because he's a little bitch and he's going to do that. However, when it really push comes to shove, he's fine just getting rid of 200 MAGA-loving patriots up in Otter Tail County, okay? So to me, that's his problem. But, Jesse, you obviously forgive people that didn't vote for Trump in 2016.
I'm getting to that.
Okay.
I got a whole section to get into.
Well, we kind of a little time conscious here, so
I can be very quick.
But
here.
I want to get this out of you. Okay. Can someone still be considered a Republican who didn't vote for Trump in this election? Now, maybe they did it more quietly, but they had reservations for Trump. They didn't vote for Kamala. They just didn't vote for Trump. Do you see that like daylight there?
Not really. Here's the thing. I think in 2016, there's an argument to be made. And actually, A.K. Kamara talks about this in his video. He states that he was a never-Trumper in 2016, and he talks about how there's room for grace and understanding for people to figure things out. And all conservatives after Trump's 2016 victory, anybody who was good faith, like Vice President-elect J.D. Vance, jumped on board the Trump train after seeing how the media lied about who he really is. The same obviously can't be said about Rhino David Hand. Even party officer Representative Walter Hudson wrote a piece in 2016 calling Trump a fascist. However, Walter has since changed his tune. But we should also note only two legislators actually endorsed Trump in the primary when it mattered. Senator Nathan Weissenberg and Senator Representative Ben Davis from 6A. Of course, Emmer and the Rhino Congress crew all endorsed Trump on the same day after Trump crushed Nikki Haley in her home state, and it became clear that they had to grift behind MAGA to survive. All other state legislators either supported bird-brain Nikki Haley, like Kristen Robbins and Senator Julia Coleman, or they supported Ron DeSantis, like Walter Hudson and Elliot Engin, or they were completely silent and kept their constituents in the dark, which likely means that they were a Nikki Haley voter.
That's the problem that I have with you, Jesse. And I know a lot of our fans are also going to love that about you. But it's like you fault people for being quiet. Like, I literally was, give me someone other than Trump. Like, the time has come. We need somebody else. Okay? Now, maybe I'm wrong in that because Trump outperforms. And we're going to get that in the last segment about his cabinet appointments already. But it's like, we could have, didn't we learn that J.D. Vance has a lot to offer, right? Like another generation, which I'm glad, and that's why I was really happy Trump took him. That kind of won me over, right? But it's like, can't you actually understand that there's people that belong in the party who maybe aren't the biggest fans of Donald Trump? I get it. The media says a lot of lies about him, and they might not even buy all those lies, but there's legit criticisms of Donald Trump. And on the opposite side, it's like, well, legislators didn't come on and endorse him. Well, Fishbach and Emmer did. What does that say?
Yeah, but I told you it was only when they had to.
Right, exactly. So it's like, I don't know. I just, in some regards, I just want people to be real.
I think, here's the thing. If someone wants to come out and say, I'm not going to make an endorsement because these are the things I'm looking for. I'm not seeing an alternative to Trump that's meeting what I want, but I'd like to see an alternative to Trump. That's one thing. But silence is a completely other thing. If they don't say anything, what does that tell you? It shows that they're afraid to tell people what they actually think.
Well, this is where I can't get over, these are the people that really need to be kicked out of the party. They're the ones that go, yeah, but I endorse Kamala. Like, oh, you're a conservative and you endorse Kamala? Like, what part of the conservative agenda is she advancing?
Right.
And so that one doesn't make sense. We wanted to have people. We tried reaching out to these never Trumpers that actually support Kamala Harris, the Republicans for the first time voting for Kamala, but none of them want to come on this show, right? Mm-hmm. That's the position I really want to talk about because I think those people don't belong to the party. But I think I have sympathy for people that just, maybe they couldn't even vote for Trump or they did it very quietly. They just had a problem with him. And there's a lot of valid reasons.
Obviously, people can have issues here and there and go, I'd rather him do this. I'd rather he do this. I wish he would have kept his word to fulfill this obligation or something.
Yeah.
That's perfectly fine. But when it comes down to it, you can't call yourself a Republican if you're not with Trump. He is the standard.
Okay,
bearer.
but what do you mean by with Trump? Like, that's what I don't understand. Am I with Trump? Would you say I'm with Trump?
You voted for him.
Yeah, I voted for him.
That's what it takes.
So it just takes an actual vote.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. And, since we're talking about broad...
But I didn't vote for Trump. What I did is I voted basically against the Democrat machine. Mm-hmm. There's a little bit of voting for Trump because, quite frankly...
you could have voted for like 8 different people if you just wanted to vote against the Democrats. You obviously looked at the options and Trump was the best of the options.
That is a good point. Yeah. There's so many reasons it wasn't that hard to pull the lever for Trump.
Yeah.
I had a much harder time in 2020, especially after COVID. But man, what they did with the Hunter Biden story pissed me off. Mm-hmm. But now there's a lot of things I want to see. But one of them, and we got to go to this last segment here.
I'll say this very quickly about Broadcorp because obviously he's a con man. He uses the Republican label to get ahead, and he endorses Kamala Harris. But he's got his DWI, which he pled guilty to, his extramarital affair with Senate Majority Leader Amy Koch while he was a Senate staffer. So he's got this tarnished record, and he realized that the only path for redemption for him was going to be by becoming a Democrat and becoming their mouthpiece and calling himself a Republican. So he's an obvious left-wing attack dog, not a real journalist. But despite that, rhinos like David Hand continued to feed him intel, appear on his show, and give him credibility since he has none with regular people. And David Hand is even a co-sponsor with Democrat Chair Ken Martin of a campaign for civility. So Republicans can learn to be polite while Democrats screw us over. Tactically, David Hand is constantly ceding to the left's terms and is never gaining ground for conservatives.
That's his biggest problem, plus the fact that how can you get reelected when you failed to win anything?
Yep.
2 election cycles in a row. He lost in 2022. In this case, he literally didn't win anything. He didn't win back the Minnesota House. They didn't flip a congressional district, which is where the energy went. They pretty much just ignored their Senate candidate who did better than any in the past. Royce White got over 40%. No other candidate against Amy Klobuchar has broken 40%, and they did jack shit for him. They actually lost House races with their endorsed candidate because they basically wanted it to be that way.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about this, all right? So Grand, I see in the comments, Grand GEM says, Gitmo is filling up with the 500,000 warrants for evil pedophiles from all walks of life. Yes, it was enlarged for this purpose. It will be announced. No, it won't. It will not. That's not happening. That is a conspiracy. That is not true at all. Okay? Get off whatever platform. Whoever's telling you that is lying. In fact, I was thinking about this. A lot of people said Trump's really been in charge for the last 4 years. It's a Q kind of theory. No, he hasn't. And by the way, if he has, then he can't take office again because you can only do 2 terms. Like
Jake, you asked me a question earlier. You were saying, what does it mean to actually be with Trump? I want to change my answer because I'm thinking about it a little bit more. It's not just voting with Trump, obviously. It's really, are you with the America First principles? Are you with the America First vision?
There you go. I like that.
And what I mean by that is, like, do you actually want to make America great again? Do you actually want to end these wars? Do you actually want to put America first? And that means securing our border. That means, not putting these foreign nations ahead of our own and prioritizing the citizens' needs first. Obviously, David Hand is not America First. David Hand is not MAGA. That's why he opposed Trump for 2016. And, obviously, if he wasn't, openly talking about, with the indictments and whatnot, I can almost guarantee you David Hand was a Nikki Haley voter.
Okay.
Chris Christie was on Minnesota ballots too. So who knows?
Right,
maybe David Hand.
Let's get into this. I have no idea where this is going to go. We just said we want to talk about in the show prep. This is going to be an interesting conversation, okay? And I read this Q theory about the Gitmo filling up because, there's this hope that Trump's going to come in and solve a lot of these big problems. And sometimes I'm beginning to believe these problems can't be solved. And that was the argument to vote for Kamala, by the way. Or not vote for Kamala. There's no argument to vote for Kamala. But that's the argument to, just abstain and let bygones be bygones and Kamala wins because if the ship's going to go down, let the captain be my enemy, not our champion in this case, right? I still hold out that there's hope Trump will solve some of these major issues. But the first thing that we get are cabinet picks, and they're starting to be released, okay? Let's go pull up this list. This is the D3, Dawson. There's just these but if you're ready for like some monumental change to the federal government, I just don't see it happening, okay? Who has Trump picked for his cabinet?
Go ahead and scroll down to Austin.
Yeah, you put that.
Gives a little bit more of a list there. So, Trump's picked so far. Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles, obviously she's more of a background person in the campaign. She's
a co-chair. She's not a background person. What do you mean by that?
Well, she's not like I mean that she's not on the news. She's not like the kind of person that is going on and doing interviews and whatnot. She's more of a campaign person.
Yeah, but you know her history, right? Other than being Pat Summerall's daughter, which is a plus for her.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, she was involved with DeSantis. I know there's some bad blood between the two of them now, and DeSantis abandoned her, and then she jumped on board with Trump.
Yeah, well, it's even more than that. So she was leading a big Washington D.C. lobbying firm. It's called Ballot Partners. Pull up the D5 just to show you. This is the clients of. I mean, this is what gets guys like me skeptical. She represented a firm that has Google, Amazon, go back up, Blackstone, not BlackRock, Bayer, so a big pharmaceutical company. These are massive companies here. Boeing, right? Military industrial complex, Boeing. And you could go on this website yourself, Ballard Partners. So she led this organization till about 2019. Mm-hmm. So she's pretty entrenched into what we consider the swamp to be. Now, brilliant mind when it comes to...
Maybe not necessarily, though. I mean, it's been since like the 90s since she worked in D.C.
2019 she left. That was Florida.
She might have worked she might have run that organization, but I'm saying actually political work within D.C. But
you're running an organization that's lobbying for those companies, and those people are not lobbying for good things, right? They're not lobbying for more freedom here. Mm-hmm. Like they're lobbying for carve-outs to laws, right? Especially these big pharmaceuticals. Okay, so that's...
I'd have to dig a little bit more, but I mean, I'm saying
do.
that her actual D.C. experience is from decades ago. So, you know, there's this organization, but yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm going to have to wait and see on her because from what I've seen, I've been impressed.
She's very impressive. I'm not taking that away from you. She's an intelligent woman.
She's going to be the first female.
By the way, Pat Summerall's daughter, I mean, that's a big plus.
Right, first female chief of staff.
A lot of us that's true too. Breaking the glass ceiling. Yep. A lot of us who watched the football in the 90s remember John Madden, Pat Summerall. So that's a plus, I guess. But yeah, I'm a little worried about that. Let me go to the comments here. Jay Cure says, I'm with Jake on this. I see no reason to fault people who didn't endorse Trump before the primary, especially elected officials who are supposed to value their constituents' input into the process.
Well, that but
I think
if they valued their constituents' inputs, they would have supported Trump. I mean, it was so clear that Trump had the support from the beginning of the primary.
Yeah.
The primary feels so long ago at this point, but if they wanted to make
two
the
assassination attempts ago,
right? And if they want to make the argument that they're representing their constituents, maybe they should endorse the person who their constituents want. For some people, they try to look for a little path way out of Trump. There is no path. We have to try to make America great again. He's the only one that could have done it.
Okay, let's go back to this list here. Deputy Chief of Staff, Stephen Miller.
Yep. I'm happy with that choice. Okay. He's another tough one. He's not afraid to be hated.
Yeah.
He doesn't care. It's not about feelings. He doesn't care if he's going to offend people, which that's the kind of mindset we need right now. We need people like that.
Ambassador to the UN, Elise Stefanik.
I'm not thrilled about that one, but I'm not entirely opposed either. I think that she's actually better than a lot of people expect, and I think that she'll do as she's told. I mean,
I honestly do not give a shit about that one. It takes her out of the U.S. House,
right?
A leadership position. So maybe that goes much better. And quite frankly, I mean, Birdbrand Nikki Haley could do the job. Elise Stefanik's going to do it. It's not going to really change much of the dynamics.
I mean,
we'll joke
see.
anyhow.
I think Elise Stefanik, do you remember when the Speaker of the House race was going on? She was saying, we support Kevin McCarthy.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
I support Jim Jordan. Or who was the guy before him? Steve Scalise.
Yeah.
I support Steve Scalise. I support Jim Jordan. I support Tom Emmer.
Did she get on board on Jim Jordan? I don't think she did.
No, she did. She got on board with every single nominee. She is a good Republican loyalist. She will do whatever the Republican Party says. So, for Trump to put her in, it basically is, you're going to do my agenda, and she'll do it.
Okay, so, let's get to probably his best pick, right? Border Czar.
Yep.
He called him Border Czar. I love it.
Yep.
Tom Homan. This guy is interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's one of those guys that, there's tons of committee hearings where he puts the Democrats in their place. He's not afraid to say it. And what better person to replace with Kamala Harris as the border czar than Tom Hortman? It's just so obvious that lots of conservatives respect him. He's tough. He knows his stuff. He's obviously been in law enforcement on the border for a long time. So if there's anybody to lead the border, it's probably Tom.
And he's actually going in on the deportation. And so then the media I was watching is like, is this going to separate families? And they're like trying to get him on that. He's like, if I arrest someone for a DUI and take him to jail, family services is going to go to the children and take them away. Like, what's your point?
Right, exactly.
It's like if you're breaking the laws.
Anytime you arrest someone, you're separating families.
Yes.
Right.
They're breaking the laws. That's the problem.
Yep.
EPA head Lee Zeldin, National Security Advisor, here's where I'm going to get critical, Mike Walz. Not to be confused with Tim Walz's brother, who's actually, I guess Tim Walz's brother is a Trump supporter as well. Mm-hmm. But this is Mike Walz spelled W-A-L-T-Z. And there's no T in Tim Walz's name except for his first name, I guess, right? National Security Advisor. That's a pretty key position, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to get too big on the EPA.
Yeah, I honestly don't know enough about him. I think he was on the National Security Council, or not the whatever it's called, the House Committee, National Security Intelligence Committee, I think is what it's called. I think I've seen him a couple of times on there. I don't know enough about him. He kind of doesn't stand out enough for me to dig into, but I guess I have to now.
He seems to be an attack Iran kind of guy, and that gets me concerned. But let's get to the elephant in the room, okay?
Right.
All right. This is where I'm real interested where the conversations go. You guys know it at home. Marco Rubio's name is floated as Secretary of State. Now, this is the most key cabinet position. At least it was during the founding of this country, Thomas Jefferson being the first one to serve in that position. When you look at the order of people who take over, succession for the president, inside the cabinet, the first Secretary of State, not defense, Secretary of State.
Mm-hmm.
It's a key position. Now, this is the way I look at it. When you are when you're the Secretary of State, you are the embodiment of the American people. I used to always say this about John Kerry because Obama had John Kerry as his Secretary of State. And then he had Hillary Clinton. Or wait, other way around. Hillary Clinton first, then John Kerry. I mean, Hillary Clinton's bad enough, but John Kerry, like, that's who we're portraying around the world as an American. Like, the head of the State Department is John Kerry.
Mm-hmm.
So why do we always go with these insiders in Washington, D.C., these crazy? Why can't we have, like, I'm sorry, I'm biased, like a cowboy. I want a cowboy. Half the world used to think of us as just John Wayne, right?
Mm-hmm.
How about we get a little bit more modern with time? Someone from some entrepreneur, like, to be honest with you, like an Elon Musk character is a great Secretary of State. Someone that understands how to make money and do international business. I'm not saying Elon Musk for that position. I'm just saying
Tom Selleck.
Tom Selleck's got the look. Yeah, he's got the look. That's true.
Mm-hmm.
But it's more than just a look. You got to have the resume. And now they're going to this awkward senator from Florida. That's what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is not confirmed, just FYI.
Right.
But a lot of sources have said this is who Trump's going to do.
Not a lot. I think it's really just the Washington Post and CNN. They're the main ones that are reporting this, and then everybody is taking it from them and taking their word at it. I really don't believe that Trump is going to pick Marco Rubio. It's not in line with America First. It's not in line with the vision. Marco Rubio, just like Kamala, is a cracker. He cracks under pressure, and that's not what we want at the world stage. I would have preferred, a lot of people were saying, don't hire Pompeo. I would have been okay with Pompeo.
Do not hire Pompeo. No. No. He's ruled out Pompeo and Nikki Haley at this point.
The Secretary of State has to be someone tough. It has to be someone a little bit intimidating so that the rest of the world doesn't mess with us. And Mike Pompeo fit that. Mike Pompeo actually isn't as much of a rhino neocon as people want to make him out to be. He was actually a lot more realistic, dealing with the real world rather than, libertarian theory. So I could actually tolerate Mike Pompeo. I think he's a genuine person. He obviously is a big-time, I disagree with him on a ton of things, especially in the worldview and our military presence around the world. But I want someone tough in that position. Marco Rubio doesn't intimidate me at all. Mike Pompeo, of course he's a little intimidating. He was a CIA director. He's a tough guy. He lost all that weight. He did that to come back, I'm
judging by what they believe in. Billy 22 says Susie Walz is a national populist.
But some of it's personality.
AK America First. Imbauer 44. Go home and the men is biggins. Tucker 91. Families can be deported together. Razzle Dazzles. Already tagged Trump on True Social about my displeasure for Rubio. Imbauer 44. Yeah, it's weird. Don't get it. I think in reference to Marco Rubio. Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, who is coming from his deer stand today, watching a show in the deer stand apparently. How many bucks walked into your stand while you're watching the show? But we do appreciate you watching. Says, howdy, Pilgrim. I think he agrees with my idea of having John Wayne type character for Secretary of State. Tough. I agree with that, Jesse. Mm-hmm. But humble foreign policy. Let's stop attacking people. And that's the problem that I have.
Like when Trump said, I could have one guy go to China and say, we're going to put a tariff on you. And then I could have another guy say, listen up, mother effer, we're going to put a 25% tariff on you guys. And it's about style. So, it could be the same exact idea and message. It is about personality sometimes, though. It is about the person that's actually pushing that message. Because as you said, John Kerry, Hillary Clinton, they're up on the world stage. America's not going to be respected in that case. Mike Pompeo, for better or for worse, we're respected. And, feared. But it's, you have to be a little bit feared to be respected.
Are you really making an argument for Mike Pompeo?
Yeah.
The guy that said
Definitely
we aren't going to release the JFK?
Rubio.
The guy that makes argument not to release the JFK files, this is the guy that you're making an argument for?
Yeah, I don't agree with him on that, but I'd still take him over Rubio.
The country has 320 million people in it, and somehow we only can find Mike Pompeo as an alternate to Marco Rubio. By the way,
I'm just saying
what's his name? Rick Grinnell is the other option that's on the table, which seems to be a better option. But I'm just like, why can't we have someone from the business world? Why are we getting a Washington insider?
Trump
Isn't
did
that the
choose,
problem isn't that the problem with the State Department? It's just Washington insiders. Isn't this the problem with the Treasury Department? It just happens to be the same old Goldman Sachs.
Remember, he tried, though. He tried to put an outsider in with Rex Tillerson, then Rex Tillerson turned out to be a phony. You know, he was a big-time never-Trumper. He was fighting against the Trump agenda.
So
he
you
tried
got
to put
that
in
one
someone
wrong.
on
It
the
doesn't
outside.
mean you can't. Now, he did put Christopher Miller in a SecDef. It was basically lame duck. By the way, that would be the funniest one. So I've actually met Christopher Miller. Okay, that was the SecDef under Trump. Basically, his lame duck
After
term.
Mark Esper.
Yeah, basically, what was that? It was basically post-election. Okay, so he never got confirmed by the Senate. I've actually met Christopher Miller. Really interesting guy. Liked him a lot, by the way. Never would have saw him as a SecDef. I don't think he saw himself as a SecDef. What would be so funny if he appoints Christopher Miller, which I believe I would be very aligned on, but I don't know Christopher Miller's whole, beliefs and everything, is Billy says, yes, Chris Miller for Secretary of State. Yeah, I could do that too, by the way. But I was saying for Defense Secretary. You know what would be so funny if he appointed Christopher Miller? He's literally the author of Project 2025 for defense. Now, that would be great, okay? Because, Project 2025... the left defined what it was, and in an aggregate, maybe it's got bad parts. They didn't read the defense part. Like, was there a bad part of the defense? So that would be just so funny. But I want those kind of personalities. Like, Christopher Miller was not a Washington insider in the sense that is what no one was saying he was being groomed for that position. Mm-hmm. In the Secretary of State position, you can just literally go into the business world. Like, go find someone that really. How about Clint Eastwood? Let's bring Clint Eastwood. I know Clint Eastwood's really old.
He's out.
How about Clint Eastwood? My God, let's get. How about Joe? I think we should have Joe Rogan as the Secretary of State. There you go, Joe Rogan, the largest podcast on the planet. Joe Rogan, very successful guy on it. The comedy mothership. He doesn't have. I don't think he's got ownership in the UFC, but by God, he's a big part of that brand.
Maybe Jocko.
Dana White is Secretary of State. I don't know.
Jocko.
There you go. You just convinced me. Jocko Willink. Why not
that's
Jocko
more what
Willink?
I want to, because it's got to be intimidating. You got to have a little bit of, you got to put a little bit of fear in people's eyes. And I saw one is Jesse drunk about Pompeo.
That's good.
I'm telling you, like I said, I got a lot of differences of opinion with him, but. Would you rather have a neocon that is tough or a neocon that is weak-kneed like Rubio?
Oh, Embauer 44 says General Flynn. Now that just is fun. That gets fun. Okay. Kash Patel for Director of National Intelligence. I heard that was being floated out there. So there you go. This to me, and we obviously can't conclude on this because we don't know at this point, but there's so much potential, and I don't want to see Trump F this up.
Yeah, that's the thing. It just doesn't make sense for him to pick Rubio, so I'm starting to think he doesn't. And, there's going to be plenty of options out there that are going to be interesting. Attorney General, Matthew Whitaker, who knows who else he might select. So
K-Wall says options. Alex Jones for press secretary. And
I love that.
Not only yes, but hell yes. Tucker says, why not Ellen for SOS? I will get it in the post show. We need to come up with a name. Let's just call them truthers for now. But we got to come up with a name for all the people that support the show. Just so you guys know. The nation rejected Tim Walz. They rejected him because they kind of knew his record. They knew he was a liar. And this show led the way. Do you know we actually interviewed Command Sergeant Major Thomas Behrens in 2018? We kind of partially broke that story to people. Tim Walz is stolen valor. Actually, at that point, it wasn't even a stolen valor. It was just that he ditched and bailed on his troops. And then we learned about the stolen valor. We led the way on the lies of Tim Walz, right? The lies of Tim Walz, okay? Mm-hmm. And this is what you do. You support a good show like this. You can go to truthhurtsnews.com, click on support. $8 a month. You support this great mission that we're doing, along with our great supporters, our advertisers, Warren Wessel, of Keller Williams Realty. If you're looking to buy a home or sell a home, give Warren a call. Also, John Galt Mortgage Company. Go to johngaltmortgage.com. And Alpine Cabtree in St. Cloud. So for those who are already subscribers, we'll call you truthers today. I got to come up with a good name. We're gonna answer your question on my thoughts on Elon Musk. I have some thoughts on Elon Musk. I'm getting very uncomfortable about Elon Musk, especially a tweet that I saw just in the last day. I mean, he looks like a hero right now. You have to assume this guy's got good intentions. This is what I'm worried about. Let's get into it in the after show. Even if you're not watching live, you can join us in the after show. Go to truthhurtsnews.com or go on the Rumble and click on join, and that's how you can be part of our after show. What happens is you basically get a free Locals account and get to watch the extra hours of the show. Or I shouldn't say extra hours, extra minutes, not hours. Some of you guys like hours. I'm shocked. I get both sides of it. I get people going, the show's too long. And then I get other people going, you should go longer. It's like, what do we do? I don't know.
Yo, I see Brad Gander says Huckabee just announced for U.S. ambassador to Israel. I wonder if he means Mike Huckabee or Sarah Huckabee Sanders. And, one last thing, too. I know I forgot to mention about Marco Rubio. I saw that Adam Kinzinger, obviously big-time never-Trumper, anti-Trump guy who voted for the impeachment January 6th committee. Adam Kinzinger was complimenting how Rubio was a great pick. He said he's a pretty good pick or something like that. So hopefully Trump sees that and goes, okay, if Adam Kinzinger is happy, I can't select this guy anymore. So
Trump nominates Mike Huckabee as ambassador to Israel. Now, I'm actually kind of curious. I just assume
Mike is a moral guy.
I assume that the ambassador to Israel has always been Jewish. I don't know the answer to that question. That's an interesting pick because you got an evangelical Christian.
Yeah.
Ambassador. Okay, I'm going to look this up real quick and then we're going to go to the post show. Ambassador. As I'm looking this up, you guys go ahead and click on join on Rumble or go to truthhurtsnews.com and become part of our supporters.
Huckabee doesn't stand out to me as a Jewish name. Definitely not.
What's that?
Huckabee?
No, Huckabee's definitely not Jewish. He's literally an evangelical pastor.
That's a very interesting
So when I look at Jack Lew is the incumbent right now.
He looks Jewish. Right? Hey, if you look him up, he looks.
You said it. This is very interesting. Let's just look this up. So Jack Lew is the current one.
Jacob
What did I say?
Jack.
His family is Jewish. Okay, yep. Jack Lew. Before that is Stephanie Hallett. Doesn't say much. She doesn't look Jewish to me.
No, you've said it.
Okay, this Tom Nides was the one before that. Jewish family, yep. Oh, he's from Duluth, Minnesota. Before that's David Friedman. We can already assume that one. Shapiro before that. We know that one. And then the Cunningham before that. Interesting. Okay, so it's not always Jewish. Okay.
And I see the Israeli ambassador welcomes appointment of Mike Huckabee. So it looks like Israel is okay with the nominations. I can't imagine they'd be upset with Mike Huckabee.
No, apparently they're going to be just fine with them.
Right.
That seems pretty harmless, honest to God.
Yeah, I think so too.
Whatever.
It means that no serious change in policy.
All right, well, let's get into this Elon Musk tweet that's got me concerned and a bunch of other things in our post show. We'll see everyone else on Thursday. Take care.